Hello YouTube and welcome along to the channel once again. Peter Rising here, Microsoft MVP, with another video on all things Microsoft 365 and Azure AD, which we are learning from the very beginning in this series. Now, we're following along with the MS 102 examination guide, and we're getting into the realms of Microsoft 365 Defender now. We're going to be taking a look into the Security Center in Microsoft 365 in today's video. There's a lot of great stuff in here that you can use to protect yourselves and your organization and improve your security posture. It's important and cool stuff. Let's check it out. So the next section that we are going to examine in our MS 102 exam guide is Manage Security and Threats by using Microsoft 365 Defender. So we are getting into Defender territory in our journey here. And there is a lot of good content in the upcoming sections. There are 3 subsections within this larger section. And we're going to start with the very first one, which is all about managing security reports and alerts by using the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. In this section, we will look at reviewing and taking actions to improve the Microsoft Secure Score in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. We will look at reviewing and responding to security incidents and alerts in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, and we will also review and respond to issues identified in security and compliance reports in Microsoft 365 Defender, and finally we review and respond to threats identified in threat analytics. Let's dive in, starting with reviewing the Microsoft 365 Secure Score. So in our learning journey, this is the first time that we find ourselves in the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, what I more commonly call, rightly or wrongly, the security portal because of the name of the URL. You access this portal at security.microsoft.com. And as always, you will need to have administrative access to this area. I, once again, am logged in as a global administrator here. But always be mindful of granting only the privileges that are needed, and wherever possible, do look at using privileged identity management. So you are not having standing permissions for users all the time, because that represents vulnerability. The security portal has a lot of content in it, so it can look overwhelming when you first go into it, but as we go through, we will see where everything fits, where you need to use the features within, and hopefully at the end of this video and the next couple that are focused on Defender specifically, you'll see that it's not so scary. But we are going to start by jumping into the Secure Score. Now, the Secure Score is a wonderful, wonderful feature, and it is not leveraged nearly enough by organizations who have Microsoft 365. This is a great starting point for any organization, whether they have an awareness of their security posture strategy or not. This is going to help them to get started, get them some quick wins, assign tasks to certain people, relevant people within the organization, and improve their posture by taking actions based on recommendations within the score. Now, everybody has access to this. The Secure Score is a free service that is included in Microsoft 365, and you can access it, as you've probably already seen, from within the side panel here under Secure Score. So let's open up the score, and we can see we have lots of information in here already. Let's collapse that side panel to get us some more screen real estate. Okay, so in our overview screen, we can see that our Secure Score is currently at 37.26%. And we want to increase that. We want to get that as high up and as close to 100% as possible. Now, a top tip from me is don't be too focused on the number. Think more of specific tasks and getting it as good as you can, because it's never going to be perfect. This is an evolving story. There are changes and updates and new vulnerabilities all the time. So striving for perfection is a misguided effort, in my opinion. So you can only do the best you can here, but do try and get that secure score as good as you can in terms of a high percentage number. So we can see that we have our secure score here, and if we highlight the graph there, we can see the changing statistics over dates. We can see the breakdown of our secure score in the principles of identity as opposed to data and apps. We can scroll down and do a comparison. We can see a comparison of our own score measured against organizations of a similar size. So in this situation, we're not too far off. We're a little bit under. Organizations of a similar size typically have 47.08. That's not good enough, in my opinion. We should be looking at increasing that for sure. And finally, on this left-hand side, as we've focused going down this left-hand side really of this overview page, we have some resources where you can learn more, read about the secure score capabilities. So do take a look at those, and also partner experience updates as well. Now, on the right-hand side of this page, we get an executive style overview of the actions that need to be reviewed. And we can see these divided into categories like regressed. These are recommended actions that lost points in the past 90 days. We can see to address, which are recommended actions that have not as yet been addressed. We can see planned, recommended actions that you plan on addressing in the future. We can see risk accepted, which are recommended actions that you have decided not to address. We have recently added, which are new recommended actions, and recently updated, which are actions that were changed in updates from Microsoft. So this is a very, very good quick overview guide of these categories. And as we scroll down further, we can see our top recommended actions, and we can get a little bit of an overview here of where we should be focusing our attention in the first instance. So we can see some examples here, like ensure all users can complete multi-factor authentication. Now that absolutely should be a top recommended action. We should be having that for all users. And we can see the score impact that will achieve if we implement it and add to our score, the current status of the recommended action it's to address at the moment, and the category which it is attached to, in this case, identity. You can see the other ones are all linked to apps in this case. So we have things like create safe links policies for email messages. That is something that we will touch on in later sections. Turn on safe attachments in block mode. Ensure that intelligence for impersonation protection is enabled, and more. And you can click on view all there, which will take you into the full list of recommended actions. We'll go into that in a moment in the other tabs. Next, we can see the history of what has happened in our secure score. So we can see by date, we have points gained by completing enable self-service password reset. Now, you might recall that we did that in a previous video. So by doing that, we gained some points, which is excellent because I didn't have SSPR enabled on this particular tenant. Then we gained some points for enable a policy to block legacy authentication. So going back even further in our video series that we have here for learning Azure AD and the MS102 exam study guide, you'll remember that we enabled some conditional access policies for MFA to block legacy authentication. We also implemented protecting all users with a sign-in risk policy, require MFA for admin roles, and more points score change there for designating more than one global admin has become relevant. So you can see the benefits of what you're doing as you implement these improvements to your security posture. And then finally on the right hand side here we have messages from Microsoft. We can get the inside scoop directly from Microsoft Security. So click on recent blogs And there is a lot of good content coming out from Microsoft all the time. Okay, so that is our overview tab, which is absolutely fantastic. I'm going to skip past recommended actions briefly because that is where we will focus most of our attention for the remainder of this subject. And we'll have a look at history and then metrics and trends. So under history, we can get a larger screen real estate version of that history that we just saw. And we can get a graphical view and see our score improvement over time. And as you can see, since I've started recording these videos and using this demo tenant and implementing good security posture, my score has shot up, which is a good thing. And hopefully as we do more in this course, in this series, we'll see that creep up even more. And as we go down, we can see not just those top actions, but we can see all the actions that are in the recent history. And well, and in fact, there are only 13 items in my history here because this tenant hasn't had much of a life yet, and we've not done an awful lot with it. You can export this if you wish to examine it further, and you can filter it as you wish. If you click on filter, you can filter by date range, score change, category, product, attributed to, and tags. And you can group it by activity, category, or attributed to. So very cool stuff. Metrics and trends. Well, that's helpful. Data isn't available right now. You can refresh the content or check back later. So we can see some comparison trends here on your score measured against organizations of similar size, as we saw on the overview page. So we can see this in a little bit more detail here. And the score changes, we have a 5.8% increase here in the points achieved, and we can review things like related history and current regressed actions and so on and so forth. And we can view current risk accepted actions as well. I don't believe I've accepted anything as a risk, but no, I haven't in fact. And you'll see that clicking on that's good timing actually, because I wanted to be in the recommended actions section next, and it's taken me in there with that filter applied. And risk accepted, no, nothing applied. So I will clear that filter, and now we are in the recommended actions section with a list of actions that we need to look at to improve our secure score and our security posture. Score updates, when we've applied these, may take up to 24 hours, so that's important to realize. So there are lots of good things that we need to be looking at in this area. Let's take a scroll through and get an idea of the sort of things that we need to be looking at. Now, as we go down the list, we can see we have a change about line 38 there, and I've addressed some of these things. So some of these are completed, and I get a nice green check mark there to say that I have completed those. So we have a clear distinction there between completed and to address. So let's go back up to the top and let's take a look at some of these recommended actions. So let's start at the beginning and click on the very first one, which is to ensure that all users can complete multi-factor authentication. We click on an action and a large flyout panel appears, and we can get more detail on this particular improvement action. We can see that it's to address. We can edit a status and action plan here. So if we go into that, we can set this to a different category. So if we want to plan this, we can change that to plan. So we certainly should be planning that. Now, we filtered on risk accepted earlier, and we didn't set that in this instance. But you could set a secure score item to be risk accepted or resolved through third party or resolved through alternate mitigation. So there are these three at the bottom, which you would generally select one of these if you had another solution or if it was an acceptable risk. But in this case, we want to plan this. And you can put a note in the action plan. So you might write something like, this should, good start, typo, this should be assigned to admin 1 to complete. So you can assign these tasks to specific administrators to complete the task. So there we go. We can change that and save and close. So we've edited the status and action plan already. We can also manage tags, so we can type or find or create tags from here if we want to tag our secure score items so they are easier to find and filter. We'll not delve into that. That's a little bit too diversionary really at this stage. And we have 3 tabs here in our secure score item. We have general, implementation, and history. So under action plan, we've now got that note that I typed in. This should be assigned to admin 1 to complete. We've got a description of what this secure score recommendation is going to do. And in this case, MFA helps to protect devices and data that are accessible to these users, adding more authentication methods such as the Microsoft Authenticator app or a phone number increases the level of protection if one factor is compromised. And it's telling me in terms of the status that I have 21 out of 23 users that are not registered with MFA. And that being the case, as this is a demonstration tenant, this is a throwaway tenant, I'm not surprised at that, because I've created some imaginary users and I've wanted to go through this process so we can demonstrate it. What is the user impact? Now, this is a very, very important thing to look at on any of these improvement actions. It tells you what will happen in terms of changes and how it will affect the users if you implement them. So here it's telling us that after registering, users are prompted to authenticate with a second factor when accessing applications or other resources. The users affected, all of your Microsoft 365 users. Okay, fantastic. Let's click onto the implementation tab here. And this contains some really, really great information that is going to help us to plan our implementation. It will tell us all about prerequisites, and in this case, we require Azure Active Directory Premium P2, and we have a nice little tick next to that. We've got that. Next step, and we can see here that step-by-step guidance is provided to select and enable the right MFA method for your organization in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And it tells you here you can go to the Microsoft 365 MFA wizard. Now, if we click onto that, I was really hoping that would open in a different tab, but it didn't. Oh well. And you might recognize this from an earlier video. So it's going to take us right into that MFA configuration area in the admin center, and you can click to manage that here. So we could go through that, do the necessary, and then at the end, our secure score is going to improve. Now, if I click on back here, is it going to take me back? Yes, it is. It's going to take me back. How kind. Okay, but it's got that risk accepted filter there. Let's clear that. Let's go back in and resume where we were. So we were in the implementation steps. Then we can go through these, make sure we are in a good place to implement all of these prerequisites before we go. And we can learn more here as well. If we're not certain about this, there's a lot of information that we can refer to. Next, before we proceed any further, let's just take a look at the history tab, and we can view changes to this recommended action to see, because Microsoft changed their advice on a recommendation from time to time. So we can take a look at that and look at point changes over time and scroll down. And we can see some activity that we have done in actual fact. So these are point changes that we have implemented internally rather than it being a Microsoft activity. So we can see that this action has become relevant, score 0.78 points, and then at a later date, I marked this action as planned. So it's going to give you that history of everything you've done in relation to this improvement action. So now, with that all being said, There are two big buttons at the bottom there. We can manage in Microsoft Azure, or we can click on the share button here. So let's look at the share button first. If we click on that share button, we can copy the link and send that to somebody in a Teams chat. We can similarly create an email. We can share via Teams. We can share via Microsoft Planner. So if you have specific admins who you have in mind in your organization for certain tasks, you can share the task with those individuals and get them to complete it. And you can put that into the implementation notes. Okay, very cool stuff. Finally, we have this button here, Manage in Microsoft Azure. We click on that, it's going to take us right into the Azure portal, right to the area where we need to configure MFA. And it's taken us right into identity protection there. So that's an example of one of those improvement actions. Let's take a look at another one, because that was identity related. We've got some other identity related ones, but let's take a look at an apps related one for Defender for Office. So the next one is create safe links policies for email messages. Again, we can change the action plan. We can edit that. We can manage our tags, and we can look at the implementation prerequisites and steps. There is no history on this one thus far, so we've clearly not done anything in relation to this one just yet. So if we go back, it's telling us safe links protection for links and email messages is controlled by safe links policies. There is no default safe links policy, so to get the protection of safe links and email messages, you need to create one or more safe links policies. The implementation status, 11.11% of users are affected by policies that are configured securely. And it's giving us a lot of useful statistics here, such as the org-wide safe links policy, 2 users, 88.89% of users are not affected by policies sent from our tenant domain name. So this one, we can share that in the same way with other individuals who may be responsible for that, or we can go right to manage that. And if we click to manage, it's going to take us right into the area that we want to be, safe links, within the Microsoft 365 Defender Security Center. And we can go ahead and do the necessary. And once we've implemented that, our score is going to improve. Now that time, it did open another tab, which is very kind of it. So you'll see as you move through the secure score that some of these actions will have a link to directly manage the recommended improvement. Others will potentially not. They will contain instructions, guides for you to manually go and do that. So I wonder if I can see an instance where that is true. Use least privilege. No, that's probably going to, manage in Azure. And you can scroll down through these arrows in each one. Actually, you don't have to close that side panel, and we can see here's one for restrict anonymous users from joining meetings. It's giving us a link to go right to the Microsoft Teams admin center, which is great. I'm just seeing, is there any in here that don't have that manage button? We either don't have any here, or that is something that is more specific to compliance manager score. I'm not entirely certain, if I'm honest, but we can go back and find that out. But in a nutshell, that is our Microsoft Secure Score. I cannot recommend that enough. A very, very powerful way to improve your security posture with very little effort, not too much planning, although you do have to think carefully about how you implement these improvement actions. And the key to success is definitely going to be communication. Communicate with your users, tell them that you are planning this, have pilot groups, and do it very, very diligently and carefully. The crawl, then walk, then run approach. Okay, we're done with Secure Score. Let's move on to the next section. Right, so we've checked off Secure Score on our list of bullet points for managing security reports and alerts. using the Microsoft 365 Defender portal. There are 3 bullet points left in this section. We're going to cover the remainder of these in this video, and that will do for today's video. So we'll combine these 3. We'll talk about reviewing and responding to security incidents and alerts and responding to issues in Microsoft 365 Defender, and we'll look at threats identified in threat analytics as well. As ever, there is a lot of great documentation that we can look at in addition to what we share with you here today on this video at learn.microsoft.com. I'll include all the relevant links and I encourage you to check them out for sure. But this is going to take us back into our Microsoft 365 Defender portal at security.microsoft.com, and we now want to focus on initially incidents and alerts, which when you first go in you'll have to drill down into, and we've got incidents and then separately alerts, and then we'll move on to threat intelligence after that. But let's dive in. Incidents. Let's take a look and see what is going on within incidents. So our most recent incidents and alerts are shown in this area, and we can filter this by statuses of new +1 or severity high +2. As we can see here, we can filter by other means. We can so we've got new and in progress there. We can add resolved into here if we want to, or we can select all. And so on and so forth. So we can see we can toggle these as we need to, as we want to, which is very, very useful indeed. There's a lot of ways we can sort these actually. So we can sort by categories such as wow, what a list! All sorts of stuff in here like data loss prevention, information governance, permissions, whole host of suspicious activity and ransomware. So Microsoft are really making it very, very easy in this portal to get to the information that you want for incidents. We can filter by OS platform, which includes things like Android and Linux, all the Windows versions as well, iOS, macOS being my operating system of choice, which I always think is a bit weird as a Microsoft guy, but I'm not alone in that. So as you can see, I mean, the reason for all these filters here is because in this demo environment here, I've not got much in the way of incidents. In a production tenant, in a real world environment, you could probably expect to see significantly more. So the ability to filter them and sort them is going to be very, very important. We can also customize our columns here and choose to add or remove other columns. I mean, we've got them all selected here, but you could tweak that so you have certain column headers removed if you wanted to. But I always think, and let's collapse that again, the more columns that you have here, the more information you have, the better. So let's see what we've got here. We can see our severity, we can see investigation state, categories, impacted assets, and when we talk about assets, we're referring to users. We can see our familiar friends characters here again, Monica, Chandler, and Rachel. Active alerts, the service sources. So this comes from identity protection, Azure AD identity protection, which we covered in the last video. The first activity, the last activity, the data sensitivity. There's a ton of stuff that you can view this by. So what we have here as a recorded incident is an anonymous IP address involving one user. Now, if you remember back to the video that we did on identity protection, I referenced something called the Tor browser, Tor, which is a recognized method that Microsoft approve of that you can use to test and generate risk incidents in identity protection. And that is what has generated these incidents, because the Tor browser results in that anonymous IP address scenario. So it's recorded as an incident. So there we go. And we expand these out. We should see the same for all of these users. So we've basically got the same thing. And if we click onto these, what we're going to get is we're going to get a lot more information on what the incident was. So this is really cool. What happened? Sign in from an anonymous IP address, e.g., there you go, it's telling us right there, the Tor browser. Anonymizer VPNs. This risk event indicates sign-ins from an anonymous IP address, etc., commonly used by actors who want to hide their login telemetry, IP address, location, device, etc., for potentially malicious purposes. It tells you where this alert was triggered from, and as we've already conjectured, or well, not conjectured, we knew, this came from Azure AD Identity Protection Detection, and we can view the detection page right here from this link. It's going to take us right into Azure AD Identity Protection if we click onto that. It's going to show us the activity timeline when this took place. Monica Geller attempted to sign in from this IP address here, and the sign-in location, the browser, which it is interestingly identified as Mozilla. So there we go. And then on the right here, we have some actions that we can take for our anonymous IP address. We can manage the alert, or we can link the alert to another incident. So we might want to link these three together. We could do that because they're essentially the same thing, and we're finding a commonality here. So let's come back to that in a moment, though. Let's just go through the remaining options. We have an insight here. We can quickly classify this alert, and classifying alerts act to improve alert accuracy and get more insights about threats to the organization. We can see the alert state, so we don't have a classification set yet. Alert details, which if we click down on, we can get all those details. Evidence, the alert description, incident details, impacted assets. We can put some comments in here as well. So this is really cool. There's a lot of good stuff in here. So let's do a few of these things. Let's click on classify the alert. So the status, new. Is it new? Yes, it is. Is it resolved? No, it's not yet. We could set that to in progress. We can assign it. So we can assign this to a particular user in our organization. So let's assign this to me. What is the classification? So we can choose here what this is. We can put a classification activity next to this. So we can, is it a true positive? Is it a informational expected activity? Is it a false positive? What is this? So just for argument's sake here, just for demo's sake, I'll just put other in this situation. We can put a comment in here, so I could put something in like, well, you wouldn't know this, but just to show a comment, I'll put in Tor browser, and I'll click on save. So there we go, and we should see that reflected in our alert. So there we go. We can see. Let's update some of that. It still wants me to set the classification. So let's go back up to the top options there. We can manage the alert. So we can see it's in progress. Classification, it seems to want to put that as true positive. Oh, yes, so I see what it's doing. True positive is the top header. So it's going to set that to true positive no matter which sub choice you make in there. So I've learned something new there. I didn't realize it did that. So maybe that's a newer feature. So we can cancel that. So you can change that as you go along. But what we could do here is we could link the alert to another incident as well. So we can create a new incident, or we can link to an existing incident. And we can search incidents by typing the incident name or ID, and then we can put a comment in. So I actually don't know the name or ID of that other incident. So I'd have to go back on this occasion. So here we go, incident ID. So let's just expand these out. And so that's the Monica Geller one. So the Chandler Bing one is 10. So if we go back into Monica, we could link to another incident, link to an existing incident, and we could link to incident number 10. We can put a comment in and just put something like same category of incident, and that's just going to batch these together because we've identified these as the same, and we know that we want to tackle them in the same way. So if we go in now, we should have two. There we go. we've now got 2 incidents in there. And we could do the same with this last one for Rachel. So just to show you the principle that these common incidents are now stored in the same place. So that's pretty cool. We've also got the ability to have email notification up here as well. So we can click on email notification within the portal here, and we can add incident email notification into here. So we can add a new one. And if we go in, we can go through a wizard and put in the name of the email notification rule. So we'll just put rule 1, just to show you going through the wizard. Set up the alert notifications you'd like to receive. So send only 1 alert notification per incident, include organization name in the email, include tenant specific portal link. We've got some sources we can choose from here, alert severity. We can add services and so on and so forth. So put some settings into there. We'll get rid of that one. We'll put in Microsoft Defender for Identity. We'll put in hi, just for argument's sake. Next, put in the recipient email address, who you want to send that to. Review your rule, and then bish bash bosh, good to go. So excellent. We'll not complete that through. It just gives you an idea of what you can do to add an incident email notification. There's some threat analytics notification rules in here as well, so you can do the same for threat analytics, which we're going to be looking at in a moment, and it's a similar principle there. So and you can turn those rules on or off as needed. There's some preview features in here as well to turn on or off, and turn these on to be among the first to try upcoming features. So be aware of this one. If your organization is a little less keen to be at the forefront, at the leading edge of what Microsoft are offering in this area, then you might want to turn these off. The alert service settings, how do you want these configured? You can turn off alerts from the listed services, and when you turn them off, alerts from the service no longer appear within incidents or in the alerts queue. So here we go. We can Azure AD identity protection, choose which identity protection alerts will appear on the incident pages, high impacts only, all alerts, or no alerts. We've got permissions and roles settings here, which we can apply. So here we can activate workloads, and when you activate the workloads to use the new permission model, any custom roles that were created or managed previously by your organization will no longer grant access to services and data in Defender. We have a little warning here saying that we can't activate workloads that have not been turned on or deployed. So that makes sense, of course. Email and collaboration, so we could turn on that one if we needed to, and that's spinning away, and all good stuff. That may take a little while to apply. No, there we go. It's now being applied. Streaming API as well, so you can configure direct export of events from Defender 365 to Azure Storage and or Azure Event Hub. Available capacity 5 out of 5. So some important settings there, and where the heck have I gone? I seem to have navigated out of the security center, which is lovely. So let's just go back into our incidents, and that's where we were in the email notifications. So, okay, that was incidents. Let's move on to alerts. So, we've got a similar set of results here in the alerts. So, the settings that we configure in incidents will, as you can see, move on to determine the nature of the alerts that are generated. And we can see already that this one here, this anonymous IP address one that we adjusted in the incidents, it's now in progress. So let's close that side panel off again. And again, in the alert section here, we have the ability to customize our columns and change what we want to see there. We can filter again by severity, new, in progress, resolved, by service sources, by policy, and lots of very, very powerful stuff in here that you can that you can select in terms of filtering the content to get to it easier. So we've got our 3 anonymous IP addresses in here again from our Tor browser logins that we did for our 3 friends there. Let's take a look into one of these alerts. If we go into them, we get a very similar, it's very similar experience from the incidents to the alerts themselves, and it tells you again what happened, the timeline. There's a fair bit of duplication here in terms of what you can do in this area, so you will no doubt get the picture. And it tells you here that this is part of an incident, so you can go right to the incident page and see what incident that related to. So there we go, that's incidents and alerts. And for more information, I'll be including all of these lovely links that I have open, all ready to paste in to the description of the video, so you can read more about incidents and alerts, and I encourage you to do so. Now finally, the final part of this video for today, we'll talk about threat intelligence and specifically threat analytics. Okay, now this is awesome stuff. In threat analytics, we can see all about things like ransomware, phishing, vulnerability, and so on and so forth. We can see the latest threats that we need to watch out for. So activity profile Storm 1232 delivers malware through compromised United States tax filing service. We can see the latest threats. We can see the highest impact threats that we need to be aware of, the highest exposure threats. And access is needed here. We need to contact a global administrator to access exposure and mitigation data. That's an interesting one because I am a global administrator. I'll maybe have to dig into that one and inform you later what was going on there. But anyhow, can we click on these top? No, we can't. But if we scroll down, we can see some threats here at the bottom of the screen. And we have 1 to 30, and we can click onto these threats and see what they're all about. So let's open one up. And we get a lot of useful collateral in here. We start on an overview page, and it tells us all about this particular threat. And in that, in March of this year, 2023, a China-based threat actor group that Microsoft tracks as Storm 1232 were able to compromise US federal tax filing service efile.com. So that added malicious JavaScript file to the website that from March to April served Windows malware that installed a PHP backdoor on compromised systems. So we know what that is. We've got a lot of detail on that threat. We can read the full analyst report as well, which is very useful. We can click on that there. We can go to that actually on the next tab as well, though, so we can see a lot of detail on the actual threat. So it's very, very rich in explaining what the threat is, what the recommendations are, the detection details, advanced hunting queries, lots of references and change logs. Really cool stuff. I can't encourage enough that if you have this capability, that you leverage it in your organization. So overview, yeah, we're back in our overview. We have no active incidents. Thank goodness for that. I don't want to be bothered by this sort of thing in my environment. It sounds very nasty. So no active incidents under related incidents. No alerts over time. Action status 0%. Prevented email attempts. No associated alerts. So that's grand. And no impacted assets, and by assets we know that we're talking about users. So we're in a nice position here. So hopefully you will always find the same. But in the event that you don't, in the event that you are struck by such an incident, the analyst report here is your friend. You get a lot of amazing collateral in here for how you can respond. We can look at related incidents. If there are any, there may or may not be related incidents. Hopefully there won't be. But if you had an incident, you'd be able to see in here any related incidents. You can drill down and see If you have any impacted assets, so you can see devices with alerts over time, users with alerts over time, mailboxes with alerts over time, and apps with alerts over time. So that's amazing. Really impressive stuff. Prevented email attempts. So if any of these attempts had been cut off and prevented, you would be able to see them in here. So again, we're in a very lovely position here. No associated alert definitions for email and recommended actions. So as we've not been affected, we don't have any recommended actions, but if you did find yourself in that position, then again, the analyst report is your friend, and then you're going to get some good guidance in this section to perform actions to address this threat and improve your overall posture. So for a broader assessment and more recommended actions, view your secure score. So it's taking you right back to that secure score recommendation, and it all begins with secure score. So you really need to have secure score in mind when you're starting your Microsoft 365 journey. Get right to it from day one. You won't be sorry that you did it, because it's really going to improve your posture and save you a lot of trouble rather than being impacted by nasty threats like these. So that's our introduction to the Microsoft Defender 365, or rather the Microsoft 365 Defender. I never quite know which way around that is, but I call it the Security Center, security.microsoft.com. We've scratched the surface. There's more to come in this area. We'll be continuing in the next video in the Security Center with a lot more. So we'll wrap up the demonstration for today and start closing out our video. And that's it for today's video, folks. Thank you so much for joining. As ever, please, if I could ask you one thing today, please do like this video if you have found it useful. I get a lot of views on these videos. The channel's doing super great in its early days, and I can't thank you enough for that. But not all of you who are watching the video are clicking that like button. It takes a second, and if you could do that for me, I would be so grateful. Additionally, if you've not hit that subscribe button yet, please hit that button. Again, it takes seconds and it's free to do so. And it's going to ensure that you never miss a video from me on this and other topics that I hope to be able to help you to learn and grow, and you will find useful. Finally, do hit that notifications bell as well, so that when I have a new video out or go live, you're going to get a notification to let you know that that is there. So all great stuff. Thank you so much for your support. Let me know in the comments as well. I love to hear your comments. So many of you have left some great comments. I've got some regular commenters in there now who have said some very lovely things, and I appreciate you all so much. So thanks for that. Keep on commenting and asking me questions. And finally, check me out on Twitter. I talk a lot on Twitter and share a lot of content on there as well. You can find me at M365Rising. So do come on there, give me a follow, and you can see more content from me on there. So that about does it for the video, folks. We'll be back very soon with another one in this series. We're getting there on this one. It's nearly done. We're getting through the study guide, which is amazing. But thank you all again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.